Welcome to the Ignite You podcast.
We're two bros journey into all things spirituality and human transformation.
Let's get it.
Squib.
Cheers, brother. We're back for another episode.
Oh, we back.
We back in action. And if it's your first time joining the show, my name is Cam McDougall.
I am Ryan Miller.
And welcome to the Ignite You podcast.
Today, we are dropping in on something that is really important to us in reflection on our journey down the spiritual path, down the healing path, down the path of coaching and what we do now in this world. And it's looking at
how we fucked up in so many ways.
Exactly.
And this is very, very important because our whole journey, our whole mission is to ignite the human soul, is to activate people to their highest potential. And when you keep fucking up, making mistakes, you can get some really big setbacks. And so we have narrowed it down to our three most prominent mistakes or three most
major
fuck ups, prominent fuck ups.
Strong wording here.
Yeah, we're activated.
Yeah.
So that we can open up the floor to discuss them, to talk about them, because we see a lot of people making these mistakes over and over and over again. We still sometimes fall into making these mistakes.
For sure.
So it's very important to vocalize, articulate, talk about, and highlight them because they're pretty synonymous across the spiritual community, I think.
Yeah, in any healing community. And we wanted to just break it down to three because we actually, before this episode...
God, there are so many.
We were writing a list of like, what's the biggest challenges, hurdles, things we would have wanted to hear 5 years ago on our journey that would have supported us and what not to do and how to support that. And we're like, the list just keeps going. We need to see the themes here and break it down into three areas and three specific things we'll drop into, which we did.
Which is really cool as well because you got to fuck up to learn a lot. And so it was really cool to have that experience to go over all of these things that we had done to be like, wow, we've really stumbled a lot on our journeys. And I wanted to highlight that because as we always talk about this concept of true transformation, I think a lot of people think that spiritual ascension, stepping into your power, embodying your higher self, whatever you want to call it, is a linear progression, and it's not. You learn. And I can't believe I'm going to reference this guy right now. Oh my God.
Who are you referencing?
I'm gonna reference Zuckerberg, okay?
Oh wow.
And I know.
It's all good.
Okay.
You're referencing
but he said something very, very important that stuck with me in my entrepreneurial journey, and it was fail fast. And it was this concept of constantly failing quickly. And so the whole purpose of this podcast is to help you fail quicker. So that if you see that you're doing these things, you can rectify them. You can jump on them. You can be like, this is that thing that I'm doing, and move through that and get that lesson that much quicker.
Yeah, and embracing the fuck up. Seeing where it's happening, leaning into that space and learning from it, like you're saying.
Exactamundo.
Love it.
So we're going to drop in to the first one. And this one has actually been relatively recent in our worlds. I've had a lot of people talk about it recently with plant medicines as well, and that is this concept of stepping into leaky containers.
Yeah, containers that leak. What we mean by this, and it can look like a few different things. We're talking about leaky containers, leaky communities, just leaky shared experiences altogether. But we probably have all been to an experience or another that either we hosted or we had somebody host and we showed up for, where it didn't quite feel right, where something fell off, there was a misalignment. The example we have is the ecstatic dance with somebody shaking margaritas in the background. This is an experience we have here in Nosara. We have many different experiences to pull from, but you could probably feel when you're in a space. The intention was something when you came there. I came to do yoga, I came to do healing, through plant medicine, through breath work, whatever. And then there was something off in the space. With lots of examples of this. But most of us have experienced this. But what we want to talk about and dive into is a few experiences we've had and also have hosted leaky containers and learned from. Because as you go down this path, it's so common. I know for me, I don't know for you similarly, you want to host something and you just want to get people in. Like, oh, I just want people in this thing. When I used to run Leap events in Bali, I was like, yeah, we just need to get people. Whatever. They'll be aligned. They'll come in. And it's like anybody that was interested, I pulled them in. And the misalignment pops up real quick because anybody can just pay, but are they aligned with what you're doing? And that creates the leak.
100%. And so to go a little bit deeper into the definition of leaky, I consider it leaky energy.
Yes.
So there's an intention for an event, let's say a breathwork event. There's an intention to bring people together to heal trauma. If one doesn't cultivate a container in a way that's conducive to everybody being on the same path, everybody having a similar understanding of what's going to take place, everybody having similar intentions, everybody showing up for one another, then that can cause a lot of challenges. And when those challenges occur, it draws from the energy of the intention. So if the intention is to heal trauma and somebody either gets re-traumatized or somebody leaves feeling worse than they did coming in, or somebody feels very triggered by what somebody else did and it wasn't a constructive triggering, then that container is leaky. It's lost the essence of the intention to heal somebody. That's how I would define a leaky container.
I like that. And that happens in gatherings with friends. That happens in so many spaces where it could just be not feeling safe to share around people. We were talking about this example. We have a gathering that we do often, Tasty Tuesday. And in that space, we feel good to show up as we are, however we are, because we know those people can hold us. We know they're not going to talk shit behind our back. We know there's nothing going on there that's going to be a negative experience. We're going to be able to drop in with these humans, and we can trust that. I would love to hear from you what we were talking about before this with the leaking container and showing up and what that looks like and how showing up to leaky containers, because the example that we talk about is the ecstatic dance, and why and how we still show up to that place.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's important. First, I just want to give an actual example of a leaky container.
Got it.
Well, actually, let's go over how ecstatic dance might be a leaky container. So we go to an ecstatic dance every Wednesday. And for those of you that have never done it, ecstatic dance is a place for full expression. It's a place where you can dance, move, shake, scream, and as long as you're not affecting really anybody else in the experience and you're using consent to connect, it's kind of open season on expression.
Yeah, there's a couple boundaries, like you can't have your phone, you can't talk on the dance floor, but most everything else is allowed.
And so people go there to move and act in certain ways that you can't in society, in other places. So the ecstatic dance that we go to is hosted at a hotel here that does a lot of spiritual stuff, but also has kind of I don't know how to describe it, almost like a Guido kind of like highbrow club vibe to it.
Yes.
It's kind of got that Tulum beach club vibe to it, juxtaposed to healing. And so people drink margaritas, and the thing is that the shala that we do the dance in is actually right next to the pool where the bar is. And so there's alcohol, there's people drinking beers, there's a whole environment taking place outside of the dance that we go into. And even though one of our good friends that runs it, who creates a really powerful container, which we'll get into about how to prevent this, there's a lot of crossover that still takes place. For instance, you said there's no phones or talking.
Yeah.
A lot of times people will come from the bar into the ecstatic dance, drinking, talking, and thinking that it's just a dance party that they can come and observe. And for some people who might be going there, who might be really moving through shame or guilt around how they move and how they feel, they might see some people talking, maybe even laughing, might not be about them, but laughing and not adhering to the container's, I guess, boundaries, and actually go internal and get harmed from that experience, which I've actually seen happen when a lot of times the owners of this place actually bring friends in, and a lot of times they don't even really seem to follow the rules in that sense, just because it's a different vibe for them. But it compromises the integrity of the container, and it leaks. It's not as safe as a place that doesn't have anybody coming and going.
Yeah.
So for me, that's kind of what a definition of a leaky container would be like. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a great definition in there. That's the example we give, because we have this space that should be and is, to an extent, a very sacred space and practice, and also it's open. It's also not a very closed space.
Yes.
So yeah, I think you captured that well, and how that can look and how that can feel in different environments.
Yes. And I've also ran breath work for small groups outside, and I've held leaky containers in the past, because people have came to the spot that I was doing the breath work at that I had not thought of, and like a dog run into a bunch of people lying on mats and splash water around that totally compromise the integrity of the container. So a lot of these more open experiences that aren't in the middle of nowhere where no one's going to come can sometimes be a little more leaky in that sense.
Yeah. So what we wanted to bring into this to make it practical and applicable as well is talking about how to navigate these containers, because more likely than not, you're going to get opportunities to go into containers that are leaky.
Yeah.
And you might choose to do it. Like we
still go to dance,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was initially asking, is like how we go to that container. What do we do to tune into that? Why do we continue to go back to it? I'd love to hear you speak to that.
The most important thing is that we go in when we feel like we are aligned, when we feel like we are in a powerful place.
Yes.
I won't go to that ecstatic dance if I'm raw. If I've done a healing journey of any sorts within the time of going to that dance, or if I'm in a triggered space, or if I'm
exhausted,
in a exhausted space, or if I'm in a space where I really don't feel like I've got my shit dialed, I won't go.
Yeah.
Because if I do go and I feel aligned and I feel powerful, then I don't take on any of the shit. If someone comes in and is laughing and acting a fool and breaching the container that's built, I'll just be like, whatever, I don't care. But if I'm in a raw space, or if I'm in a triggered space, or if I'm in even an angry space or a frustrated space, I'll get pissed off, and that will completely ruin the experience for me. Yeah. So I think it's very applicable to check in first with yourself. Are you in a powerful place? Are you in an unfuckwithable place? And if you're in that space, you can show up to any container and navigate it intentionally, which to me is probably the most important thing. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah, it's definitely it. We were chatting about this beforehand, and that is the difference between the example I gave of like a Tasty Tuesday, which is another gathering we do where it's a very tight container, which would be the opposing end of the leaky container. And we can show up to that however the fuck we want. Like, I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling exhausted. Whatever. I know I can go in there. Those people can hold me. Yeah. I can be in that space. It's tight. It's just a small group of people that we know are consistently tight in that space. When it comes to the dance, if I'm feeling that sadness or exhaustion, I'm, again, similar to you, I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's going to create healing in that space to that extent. I already have to be at that bar above my feeling good and be like, oh, I'm feeling dialed in. This is going to be fun. Yeah. It's a fun experience. It's an exciting experience. Yeah. It's connecting. It's beautiful, but it's on the upper spectrum of feeling positive and feeling good in my body for sure. Leaky containers.
And so I just really quickly want to talk about our challenge, because there's a very powerful way to create a tight container. And there's a couple really key components that I think, we do very well in our experiences. And that is that we guide people through icebreakers, through intention setting, through explaining our stories, our fears, our challenges, and creating an open space that invites everybody to share and bring something forth. And so I think it's really important that when you go to healing experiences and you go to breathwork journeys, medicine journeys, ecstatic dances, whatever it is, that you pay attention to how they create the experience. Are you just going there lying on a mat and someone's telling you to breathe? Or are you going there and you're all circling up and you're partnering up and you're doing some eye gazing, you're doing some primal activations, you're doing some sort of connection piece? Like, how are they setting the tone to bring you all together? Because it's that collective consciousness that creates the magic for healing. And we're able to do this online.
Yeah.
And the only way we're able to do this online is because we get buy-in from everybody. And everybody's invested, everybody commits, everybody sets the tone. So very important, if you're going to an event, a good way to navigate if it's a tight container is how are they setting you all up to connect with one another and connect to the experience that you're about to embark on as a collective consciousness, not as an individual.
Yes. And if you're hosting an event or creating one of these gatherings, we have many coaches, healers, and teachers that tune into this podcast. What Cam just said are some great tools that we use to this day when we run any event. We have non-negotiables for events. We don't wait till the end of the activity to be like, okay, remember, this is that space that we're using here, and remember to do that later. No, we're in it. The first thing we do, we name exactly what we're doing and showing up for. And we get a buy-in into the space, and we also usually, always actually, get a verbal buy-in. Are you down for this? We go over the list of things we're showing up for. Like, yes, I am down for this. Even in the virtual space. Raise a hand if you're in for this. Literal buy-in to knowing that this is a safe, private, productive container that we're going to create healing in. And people show the fuck up in these spaces. They cry, they move, they laugh, everything. They're like, I've never done this in my life, and I'm doing it on Facebook Live right now.
Something takes over.
It does.
It's like another energy takes over.
It does. Because they're safe. And it's so rare that we're actually fully 100% safe. And we feel that in our lives. So when you can get that in a collective space, that's that tight container. Those are the containers we want to hold. Those are the containers we want to be in. Those are the containers we want to be held in, because it's that safe container that you know whatever I want to do or feel right now is allowed and embraced and celebrated. That's a tight container. It's just tight.
Shit's tight. We keep it tight. Get it
right.
right.
Get it tight.
Hey, there it is. There it is.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that's number one.
That's number one.
and honestly, I think that's one of the most important things to tune into in the healing journey. We've talked about it in our plant medicine episodes. We talked about it in as much as we talk about ecstatic dance and spiritual bypassing and all this stuff. It's like the container is everything. And that's why we pride ourselves so much on it, is that you can have the most amazing person running the most amazing experience. If the container's leaky, it's not going to stick.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Everything is a container to a point, to an extent.
We're in a container right now.
Life's a container.
Life's a container. Keep it sealed.
Embrace it. But even, just behind this, there's a stand of spiritual objects that Cam uses to drop into your space. You have a container here in your home. So even on that sense, all healing usually happens in a container. And so whether it's you with yourself or you with one other person, your partner, whoever it is, or a big group of people, there's a container you're able to create a sort of tightness in. As we talked about, you create that space, a ritualistic space.
Yes.
We'll always talk about rituals. We'll always talk about creating that for yourself to create the healing, because it is a container. Wherever you're at, wherever you're in, however many people you're with, you're in containers. So it is very applicable. That's why we brought this up first, because it happens everywhere and it goes into these other topics as well.
Agreed. Love that.
Which is the second one.
The second one.
Living
from
lack. I thought it was living in lack, but okay.
Well, from works.
From works.
From works. Living in a lack consciousness. So for me, this was so big at the beginning of my journey, because I went from finance executive to long-haired hippie on the spiritual path. And so I went from this concept of money is evil to I don't need money. All I need is my meditation practice, breath work, and a bottle of patchouli. That's all I need. And there's an element of beauty to that, that I will say.
We love the extremes.
We love the extremes. And there is an element of beauty to completely letting go of our connection to money in that sense. But it's also a very convenient excuse for a lot of people not to show up in their true power, their true expression, and to actually perpetuate a lack consciousness that I feel, and I think you feel, really infiltrates the spiritual space.
Yes, I completely agree. Saying, I don't want money, I don't need money, is a great convenience. And it creates lack across the board. It shows up everywhere. And I know this very well. My path started in this world in a nonprofit. When I first started going in this world years ago and moved to Bali, it was for a nonprofit. Nonprofits don't pay very well, especially in the world of education and mindfulness. It didn't pay very well. It just enough. And my whole story for the longest time, up until 2 years ago maybe, was if I'm of service, I can't be wealthy. That story, if I'm of service to this world, I cannot be wealthy. And I mean in the financial sense, I cannot be financially abundant. That fucking story really held me back. But I believed it. I was like, oh, I'm giving so much and it's so heartfelt, I'm so full. Of course I don't need money. No, that's greedy. I don't need that. Why?
We live in a world where money is the primary source of reciprocal energy. Money is not an evil thing. Money is a form of energy. The more value you bring to the market, the more the market will value you. And so money acts as this powerful amplifier. And I love this because Yvon Chouinard said this, the founder of Patagonia. He says, money is an amplifier. If you have greed and pain and anger, more money is just going to magnify that. The challenge is we see so many people acting from that place because a lot of people that earn a lot of money, it comes from the wrong place. That hustle came from the wrong place, a lot of times trauma. But if you have love and compassion and you want to bring so much good to this world, money's going to amplify that. If you're broke, you can't get your word out. Yes, Mother Teresa was able to do that. Yes, there are certain ascended masters and people of extremely high spiritual stature that were able to achieve that, but not many. That is the exception, not the rule. And you see more people now starting to get into this, and their impact is taking over dramatically. It's just becoming so loud, so accessible. Because the more funds you have to take care of yourself, the more you can lower the price of your offerings, the more you can provide tools and different avenues to what you're offering and all of these things. And I think a lot of times, at least for me, this concept of not needing money has just been built on a framework of unworthiness in my subconscious.
Yes, definitely. The more money we have, the more impact we can have on this planet. Like, that's a fact. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
That's how that works. And to know that, but to still deny it from that fear mentality you're talking about, the unworthiness, that's probably passed along through family. I know for me, it's directly passed along. I could see exactly where it was. And that would hold me back. Because I'm like, oh, there's no way I deserve to be rich. I don't deserve to have a lot of money. But then when you think about the impact and how it directly correlates and potential, the highest potential coming forward, it's like, that's what's necessary. It's necessary to create that financial abundance. You have to create that. So I'm curious for you. You mentioned, you were in finance. You were in like the ultimate money world. You're like, I live for money, got the cars, got the things. And then you went to the hippie side. You went there. How did you start to bridge these worlds? How did you start to kind of like, okay, I'm going to bring some of those tools? Because I know you like now you use financial spreadsheets, but you're also a very spiritual person that I don't seem like you're too attached to the dollar at driving your life. but I see you creating abundance. So I think it's a beautiful balance you have, and I'm curious how you kind of brought those worlds in.
I healed my relationship with money. And I think, honestly, I'm still healing my relationship with money because I made so much in those finance days, and I just spent. Because behind the scenes, I didn't feel worthy of that abundance. And we talk about this in the pleasure episode as well. We talk a bunch about that. And so the first thing that I did is I started working on healing my relationship with money and realizing that money isn't the root of all evil. Because for me, it was like I was rich when I was a drug dealer when I was younger. Then I was rich when I was in finance. Both of those periods in my life were it was devastating. I was just in my opinion, those were the darkest days of my life. So money was this common denominator. And so I went into this mindset of money is the problem. If I have money, I become a bad person. But then when I started taking on this mantra of money as an amplifier, I went, oh shit, that resonates. So if I heal my relationship with money, if I heal my relationship with worth, if I heal my relationship with impact and how I actually see my work creating more value for people, then I can make money from a place of love, excitement, abundance. And now I'm in a place where the floodgates are open. I'm like, bring it on. Give me as much money as possible, because that means that I can do more projects, enact more things, and spend more time refining methods and doing all of these things to really make something very special for the world. But if I'm in survival mode, trying to just pay my bills and eat food and pay rent and do all these things, I don't have time or bandwidth or the freedom to do things like this podcast, to show up in excitement, to have my practices, to give free breathwork sessions away to people, to provide people with support that need it, to offer events for donation base, all of these different things. It doesn't give us the option to do that. So through the healing, it really opened me up to changing that whole perspective.
Yeah, if your needs aren't met, you can't show up for your wants and desires and potential impact.
Not at all.
So I heard you mention a mantra you had whenever you started in this path, and a mantra you were living from. Was that kind of a catalyst into that? Like on a very practical level, was there something specific, or was it a practice? Was there a moment, or was there something that you kind of like, you said mantra, so I don't know if you actually did that and like, oh, I'm bringing in abundance. I know I used to put sticky notes on my mirror. I still do that. And to kind of remind myself like, I have this goal. I have this thing. Like I'm moving towards this, but reorienting towards what a goal even means.
It was this whole concept of money as an amplifier. Yeah. And I read the book, Let My People Go Surfing by Yvon Chouinard.
Dude, it's so good.
And in that book, it was so powerful to see how he built Patagonia and Black Diamond and all of these, and how he generated tons of abundance. And what he does with his abundance is he buys huge plots of land all over the world to protect them from development. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it all hit me where I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's powerful. Because he's not, he's buying land to keep it wild. If you're broke, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So I took his mantra on. I was like, it's an amplifier. It's an amplifier. And so for me, it's like, just keep healing, and open up to abundance that flows in. Yeah. Like with our business and what we're building, there's residual income streams. There's all of these financial implications built into a spiritual mission to fuel, to guide, to create, to level up. So that's really what it came down to, was money is an amplifier. Money is an amplifier. Money is an amplifier.
That's really beautiful. I can resonate with that, because for me, one of the greatest moments of transformation around it was one of my mentors asking me why I was limiting myself around financial abundance. Mm-hmm. And he said, make it bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
I was selfish about it. I was like, I need to make this amount of money to get this house, to do this thing, to do that. And it's like, yeah, cool. Yes. And so I can have this impact. So in the future, I can buy that retreat center and hold that space and do these projects that are bigger than me, that'll live beyond me. And that's a driving factor. Yes. That's beyond my selfishness, beyond my ego of like, Ryan needs this house, this car, this thing. Yeah, sure, I want those things. And these biggie smalls, these bigger driving factors.
I love that.
these bigger driving factors that are beyond me. And that's why I want to create financial abundance. That's what was a big shifter for me. I was like, you're so right. I was wanting money for me.
Yeah, boom.
Well, I need money to show up for others. I need money to be able to create that impact beyond me, for my generation, like for my family, for these others. Like, wow, of course.
For sure.
But when I'm selfish about it, lack.
Yeah.
I get just enough. I get just enough to hit my needs.
Yeah.
I don't get my wants, desires, my impact.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool because that pleasure episode is a huge factor in what you're saying. It's your ability to open up to pleasure and gratitude and enjoying life is directly correlated to the amount of money you make. Because if you love life, I love surfboards. I love travel. I love going places that are remote. I love experiencing things.
Money.
That's expensive.
Yeah.
I like impact. I like supporting people. I like providing retreats to people at good locations, nice spaces. That all takes financial abundance. And my buddy Lucas was posting on his Instagram the other day because he's just taken off in the last couple years. And he was talking about this and he was saying, in order for me to generate more financial abundance, I have to circulate money. And so a lot of people are stuck in this lack mentality where they try to hold on to money and they keep it really close. And they're like, okay, they're budgeting and doing all these things, which aren't bad. Budgeting is not a bad thing. I'm not harping on budgeting, but you're so granular about these things and you're like, I can't afford that. I can't do this. But it's that energy of circulating money and being okay with paying other people for services and coaching and having a team around you, which is actually becoming a big focus of my world now, is building a team of people around me that I pay that creates this circular energy, this circular reciprocation of money. Because for instance, if you invest in a nice space for you to live in, you then enjoy being in your space. You enjoy sitting down in your like decked out meditation hall. You enjoy doing your practices there. You enjoy having people over. You enjoy networking at your house. You enjoy filming at your house. You enjoy all of these things that create more excitement, more energy, that lead to more opportunity.
Yeah. I love that example too, because you get to create a greater capacity for pleasure when getting that new place.
Totally.
But you also get to create a capacity to push yourself.
Yes.
It's like, ooh, I have to pay a bit more now.
Totally.
That means I have to show up more.
Totally.
That means I have to create this.
Totally.
And that is a beautiful practice too, which I've done many times. I know you've done as well, where we're like, okay, I'm going to push myself into the space. I know it's going to create a capacity. I love this, and I'm going to have to show up more.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to give more. I'm going to have to do more. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that can be very toxic as well.
Yes.
In the finance world, the whole motto was stretch and grow.
Yeah.
So they said, go buy a nice place, go buy a nice truck, outfit yourself with tons of nice suits, tons of nice watches, and then make yourself make money. That was some stressful ass shit. Okay, I remember being like, oh my God, my overhead is like 10 grand a month. I need to show up, you know? So that plays a role.
Yeah.
But finding that gray zone where you're like, look, I'm not stressed.
Yes.
I'm not living outside my means, but I'm motivated to create more of this. I'm motivated to get more spaces like this. I'm motivated to keep this flow going. And so that we're not feeling like we're trapped in survival to pay for the bills.
Yeah. Just outside of that comfort. It's that comfort versus pleasure thing. Like we're creating more capacity for pleasure in the experiences, but we're not pushing beyond to like threat.
Yes.
Like, oh no.
Exactly.
How will I survive now?
Because that shuts off creativity.
We don't want to go there.
Yeah, that becomes very, very ugly. So find that balance between what can I kind of like, and for me it's hiring support people. Yeah. For me it's can I drop 10 grand on a business coach? That might be the only 10 grand you have saved. But if that 10 grand is going to push you to work your ass off on your business and show you how to turn that 10 into 100 grand, that's a good stretch. That's a good jump. If you've got 10 grand and you're like, well, I kind of want to buy a new motorcycle, maybe not the right thing to do. It's invest in things that are going to reciprocate that energy and actually reciprocate the energy. That's really what has me excited these days.
Boom.
But I used to buy material goods.
Yeah.
That was
serve
it.
you.
That don't serve me, right?
Yeah. Beautiful.
Love
Creating
it.
abundance, not living from lack.
Creating abundance, not living from lack. Precisely.
Boom.
Number 3.
Numero tres.
Numero 3. This one is going to resonate with a lot of people, I think. This one took a long time to learn, and I'm still
do it.
learning it. And that is pushing other people to heal. Or forcing other people to heal.
And always helping.
Yes.
Always being the helper.
Yes.
Especially as coaches, as teachers, as healers, as people who support in community. That's what we do. It can be hard to turn that off.
Oh,
and it'll
so
show
hard.
up everywhere.
So hard.
Everywhere. And there's many examples of this that we'll go into. Just to name a few, I just went and visited some family. I went over to the East Coast to go see them.
God, family's the worst for this.
Family's the best for this because that's exactly where it shows
Best,
up.
worst.
Exactly. It's
However you want to
worst
see
best.
it. It's the worst best.
That's where it shows up most for me because I'm like, oh, I have these codes, I know these things, and I see you not doing it, so let me just provide that for you. And this burns me every time I've done it. This last trip, I think I navigated it well, but I still notice that come up, that story, that little voice of like, oh, you can do this, you can, try that. And it's trying to change people because I love creating healing for others. It happens with partners. We'll call in partners. I know in the past that's my trauma is calling in partners that need healing and then trying to be that person for them so I can be valued and they can feel like they need me, which is tough. But those are some examples that it would show up with, and it shows up across the board. It shows up in many different places. I know you have some recent experiences with this as well.
For sure.
And you're about to go back and see family.
Totally.
So it's real.
It really is. And I think as a coach and as even somebody on the path, I hear about this from clients all the time. You're learning so much. You're excited. You're feeling so good. You're so connected. You're it's like someone's taking the blindfold off and you're like, what? You guys, you guys don't even know. Like, this is how good life can be. And then it's I need to show you this. I need to tell you this. I need to just make sure that every single person is on this path and gets it. And that's just not productive because people don't want to be pushed into this work. Most of us weren't pushed. I bet nobody that's listening to this podcast, this podcast was forced into healing, was forced onto this path.
Yeah.
If you are, hit us up because there's probably some trauma to work through there. You chose to be on this. You chose to embark because either you saw somebody that was living a certain way and it inspired you, or you felt like there was a part of you that just was missing and you were curious and you inquired.
Desperation or inspiration.
Exactly. Yeah. Desperation or inspiration. I love that. And so very, very important. Now, it's sneaky. It really is because we do want to help. We do want to support. I always, and with partners, I always run into this where you see them in a challenging moment or expression or experience and you think you have the solution. Whether it's addiction, whether it's not managing emotions, whether it's repeating patterns, whether it's them just being in some darkness they need to be in to learn the lessons they need to learn. We want to fix them. And generally, we want to fix them because we want it to feel better for us.
We want to feel
around
validated.
them. And we want to feel validated. And at the same time, I know I've done it in the past where it's been, I don't feel good when you act a certain way, so I want you to heal so I can feel better because you're affecting me.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of different things that could come up. But for me, for instance, I'll drop into an experience that I just had because we can cause more harm with this. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people forget is we think we're going to heal, we think we're going to support, we think we're going to do these things to improve them, but we actually end up harming them even more. And we actually, in some cases, can push them further away from healing because they feel like they're being forced. They feel like they're being pushed.
Yeah.
Because recently, I over-provided help to a former partner that I felt was in dire need of support. By putting myself out there and showing up and saying, hey, I'm here for you, unpacking things, like, let's dive into this. You're still in my heart. I'm still here for you. I was trying to help and provide support for her when she was in an extremely dark place. This is my former fiance. And she was going through a lot. And in that, I caused way more harm, because now as her and I navigate this, she actually perceived that as manipulation, which I get, I understand. I was able to sit and unpack this and really go over it with you and really inquire into why she would have had that perception. But because I was unable to just cut myself off from the situation and I tried to be the savior, I kept this story up in her that I was open to things going where I wasn't open to them going. And that was a big mistake for me, because not only now does she have a whole idea and concept of who I am and what my intentions were, but I ended up causing her so much more pain, because now she feels that she can't trust me. But my full intention was to show up for this person, was to be there for this person. So that's just an example of how these things can go completely sideways, because from my perspective, I was showing her so much love, but from her perspective, I was leading her on.
Did this come from love, the support for healing, or did it come from lack? Because I know
for me it was both.
Love. Yeah,
it was I'm afraid to let you be by yourself because I care about you. So it was based on fear, but because
it was of love.
If something happened to her, I would be crushed because I'm the one that ended the relationship. So I felt obligated to support her throughout the experience from a place of fear.
Yeah.
However, I was afraid because I cared about this person.
Oof. Yeah.
So it was a combination. And I think that happens a lot in families and relationships, even in friendships with this kind of stuff, especially with addiction, especially with mental health issues, all of these things. We're afraid of what's going to happen to the person if we don't use the tools that we have. At the same time, everyone's on their own journey. Everyone's on their own experience. Everyone has to navigate this to the best of their abilities. And it's not up to us to heal everybody.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that internal conflict of like, I'm afraid of, and I really love her, I love this person, whatever it is, does often get misconstrued as manipulation.
For sure.
Because if there's an internal conflict and then the outcome is different than what it felt like leading up to it, it's like, oh, that means you were playing me the whole time. It's like, no, it just meant I loved you, but I was afraid.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Very
because
tough.
when those worlds combine and they come together, it's misalignment of emotion.
Totally.
So then it feels that way. And the big thing here that we were talking about as well, for both of us, the biggest codes, I'm a projector, so this is a big one for me. The code of wait for the invitation. Mm-hmm. And as healers, as people in this world, or as Cam said, if you learn something new, you read a book and you're like, oh, that's cool, I want to share that. It's great to share, but when it comes to the point of, I'm going to tell this person a way to live. I'm going to help this person with X. They're depressed. I'm going to do this for them. It can be beautiful. And as you're saying, if you notice it coming from fear or from lack, a practice to play with is waiting for the invitation. Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to family. For me, that's been one of the hardest fucking things ever. Because I'm like, oh, I see it. I see your potential. Mm-hmm. I see this. I want to give you these things. I want to help you out. But that's not what it's about. Because if they're not ready for it, as Cam was saying, or if they don't want it, that's going to be negative for the relationship, be negative for the person, and spiral you of your healing and block your own healing for yourself because you're like, I just wanted to help, and they pushed it away. So it's a spiral.
And we resent.
And then we hold on to that. So you went from trying to support to then feeling denied, so then going downhill and potentially feeling suppressed about that and not wanting to support anymore or in a certain capacity. So we actually drive ourselves away and drive ourselves into negative places by that. I know I used to go around wanting to help all the people, do all the things all the time. And then if they didn't want the support, I was like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm blah, 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 blah. These stories start playing out.
Yeah.
Because I went in like, I'm going to heal everybody.
With an expectation.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to heal everybody. I got the things. I learned this thing.
Everyone needs to know this.
Everyone needs to get a routine. Everyone needs to do this. Like, if you're not doing it, you don't turn off notifications on your phone.
You fucked up.
That's the only one. Do that.
Everyone has to. You guys got to do that. You have to do that. Everyone has to do that.
But those little examples, and that comes up.
So I think it's really cool, this topic, because the best thing to do is to just live from your expression, live from your highest alignment, be an example, inspire people. Don't tell people, inspire them with your actions. And that's one of the coolest ways to get invitations is if people go, whoa, how are you living the way that you're living? It's so beautiful. It's so powerful. And it just gives you that opportunity to really kind of come in and just do your work and support the people that want it along the way.
That's the biggest code from this. I love that. We can close out with that. Living in your fullest expression here. Living in your truth and waiting for the invitation around this allows you to provide the healing that you want to give to this world while being in your power through the process and in these communities. And the invitation will come because people will see you living it. People will see you embodying it and want to know. Get curious about your practices and what you do. As a healer, that is a beautiful thing to practice yourself. I see it now as an obligation to me to be in my fullest expression and to not push healing onto others.
And that's how you really create ripples.
Yeah.
You just do the work and it ripples out. It ripples out. It ripples out.
Boom.
So we want you to take these lessons, learn them quicker than we did.
Ideally, this was supportive. Yeah.
Ideally, this was supportive.
Yeah.
And we hope that it provides you with a little bit of an insight into your journey and just a couple things to bring into your awareness, your conscious awareness of the healing journey and the practices that you have within it.
Yeah, and let's keep fucking up. Let's keep moving into it. Fail fast, fail forward, fail often.
And lead by example.
Stay lit.
Stay lit, crew.